So on page 3, we have all of our perfect squares written down. Now I have some people, I noticed some of you like didn't want to write all of this middle column. Okay, I need you to understand though that like 15 squared means 15 times 15, which is 225.
Wait, so this
Okay.
means 1 times 1.
I haven't talked about that yet. This means 1 times 1. This means 2 times 2. Okay, now go back to page 1. Okay, go back to page 1 and see if you can write these first 10 perfect squares without having to look at your chart.
Oh,
I bet you could do it.
I already kind of did that.
You already kind of did that? See if you can do it without looking at your chart.
Wait, what's 7 times 7?
49.
Bro, I'll clean up.
You gonna watch this after practice? You gonna watch the games after practice?
I hope.
Bro, I just did this completely wrong.
You just influence that game.
What is an exponent, bro?
The exponent is up here. So, like, 3 squared means 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay. Okay, now, what we're going to talk about, and what some of you are asking about, was that weird symbol on page 3. Okay, a square root. A square root is basically the reverse of a square. Okay. The square root is essentially the reverse of a square. For example, we know that 3 squared equals 9. Which means if I ask you for the square root of 9, I'm actually asking you to like unsquare it. So what number squared is 9? 3. So the square root of 9 equals 3.
What? It's like the
Okay, since 3 squared is 9, then when I ask you for the square root, I'm asking you for what number squared is 9. What number squared is 9? That's 3.
because it goes into it 3 times. Like what?
Because, like, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Okay. 3 squared is 9 because that means 3 times 3. The reverse of a square
I get it.
is a square root. So notice how this number is now under the square root. Okay. So what I like to think of it as is like a check mark with a hat. Okay. So here, notice how many squares do I have?
There's none.
9. But notice how it's a 3 by 3.
There's 9.
Right. So the square root of 9 is 3. Okay. Okay, we're going to keep talking about this. Okay. But what I want you to understand is that positive numbers are going to have 2 square roots. Why the heck am I going to have 2 square roots? Can you tell me what number times itself is 16? 4 times itself equals 16. Is there another number I can multiply times itself to get 16?
2, 4, 3, and 4.
Oh, wait. 3.
Or not 12.
What about negative 4 times itself? Ah, but are 4 and negative 4 the same numbers? Okay, so every positive number has a negative and a positive square root. Okay, now, can you take a number times itself and get a negative? No, that is not a thing. So negative numbers don't have no square roots. We don't have negative numbers having square roots. Okay. Okay, so we've written down that positive numbers have 2 square roots. Negative numbers don't have any square roots. There's one kind of number we haven't talked about. We've talked about positives and negatives. There's one number that's not any of them. 0 only has 1 square root. Okay. Now I did tell you that every positive number has a positive and a negative square root. Now, notice this check mark with a hat. This is called a radical sign, and that's indicating that we have a square root. Okay. Is it possible for you to wait like 2 minutes so that you can write down this with us? Okay, I think that would just be helpful for you. If you can't wait till now, I think that would be helpful. Okay, so we have a positive square root that looks like this. And then if there's a negative sign, that's indicating what our negative square root is. I will say root if it's bothering you. I am from Western Kansas.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Sometimes that comes out. Okay, so sometimes we say root instead of root. I am from Southwest Kansas. Like I lived really close to Oklahoma, so sometimes like how we speak is a little different than like here in Omaha. People speak. I mean, some people have kind of like a northern, like Minnesota. Okay. All right, go back to page 3.
Scottish people are funny.
Okay, here's what I want you to understand. Since 1 squared is 1, then the square root of 1 is 1. Okay, that's just annoying.
That's just too hard.
Okay, now what about the square root of 4? 2. Whoops. Since 2 squared is 4, the square root of 4 is 2. Since 3 squared is 9, the square root of 9 is 3. Okay. So technically, yes, I'm going to speak through all of these, okay? Since 4 squared is 16, the square root of 16 is 4. Since 5 squared is 25, the square root of 25 is 5. Since 6 squared is 36, the square root of 36 is 6.
Miss, I feel like I'm in 3rd grade again. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is hard.
I don't, did you write them all down?
Yeah.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. What?
It's like, go and be back in 3 minutes.
It does not take that long.
So you want to do it shorter?
No, like I meant. Longer.
Okay, 7 squared is 49, so the square root of 49 is 7. A squared is 64, the square root of 64 is 8. The square root, you know what, since this seems to be boring, okay. Kaden, what's the square root of 225? 15. Thank you. No. Emma, the square root of 121. 11, okay? Kale, the square root of 100. 10. Okay, Austin, the square root of 400. 20. Okay. The square root of 361 is 19. The square root of 324 is 18. So I think we've all figured out that this is just like this, right? Okay. Now, what you're going to need to be able to do though, is like next week, if I say, hey, Emma, what's the square root of 144 without looking at your chart, you need to be able to tell me 12. Okay. So we're going to get plenty of practice. Okay. But I'm just saying that's where we're going.
I think my mom to bring my slippers. So from.
Okay. So what I want you to do, I want you to go back to page 1. And I want you to write down what you think the answer is to number 1 and 2. Yes, Emma. And I said yes.
I'll just do it later.
Okay.
She can just bring them later. I actually know.
Write down what you think number 1 and number 2 is. Yes. Same thing. Awesome. That one's broken. All right, Cash, what is the square root of 49?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so on your chart, what number squared equals 49? On your chart, what number squared is 49?
Numbers, 7 times 7.
Okay, so if 7 squared is 49, the square root of 49 is 7, okay? Sophia, what about the square root of 9? It's 3, okay? Now, if we come over here to number 3, I have negative square root of 4. Kanaya, what do you think about Kanaya's negative 2? We cannot have a negative inside the radical. But if it's outside, we just keep it outside. Okay. So I want you to write down answers now for 4 and 5. It is a negative 2. So then Wes, what's the answer to number 4? Negative 17, do you agree?
Yes.
17 squared is 289. So the square root of 289 is 17. We have a negative out in front. Caesar, what do you think about number 5? Negative 14. I love it. That's great. Okay. Now we're going to skip number 6 because that is a number we didn't even write down. We're not going to worry about number 6. I want to jump to number 7. Oh my gosh, it's a fraction. Don't freak out. Fractions are our friends. This is what I'm going to ask you to do. Watch this, Cash. I'm going to make it go from complicated to easy. I want you to take the fraction and I want you to think about the square root of 1 separate from the square root of 16. Okay, what's the square root of 1?
1.
And what's the square root of 16?
4.
Our answer is 1 over 4. Okay, so write down the answer to number 8.
No way.
Probably too much work.
What?
Miss, we're good. I doing all this stuff.
I did it.
Okay. What's the square root of 81? 9, what's the square root of 25? Oh my goodness, we have -9/5. We're just gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it. All right, so here's your job. I want you to circle all of the perfect squares. I'm gonna give you 60 seconds. Look at all of these numbers right here. Circle any number that is a perfect square. Bonus points if you can do it without looking at your chart. But if you look at your chart, it's okay. I get it. Okay, check in with your elbow partner to see what they circled. Yep, you have one, and then you have one that circles the instrument. All right. Figure out which one it is. Yeah. Madison, give me one that you circled. 324. That is, I believe, 18 squared, right? Ruby, give me one that you circled. 121 is 11 squared. Marco, give me one that you circled. 1. 1 is 1 squared. Kaylee, give me one that you circled. 9. 9 is 3 squared. Emma, what's one that you circled?
64.
64 is 8 squared. Wes, give me one that you circled. That's all?
That's it.
200 is not a perfect square. 100 is, because that's 10 squared. 400 is 20 squared, but 200 is not a perfect square. Wah, wah, wah. All right, this is what I want you to do. Do you see in the middle of your table, there are these. Grab one of these and an expo marker. And I want you to try to answer these without your chart. See if how many you can answer without your chart. Turn your charts over. What? No, that. But like, I don't want you to look at this. Oh, Reagan. Stop drawing things.
You're not supposed to put it.
Is it easier to connect?
What number times itself is 100? So what number squared is 100? Like just for right now, I'll let you. So like, where do you see 100? Okay, so then the square.
You good?
20 squares means 20. This.
Already set. Yeah.
Check in with your elbow partner to see if you agree on these answers, okay? Okay, if you still have some that you're struggling with, go ahead and you can look at your chart right now.
Did you know that? Did you know that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He just cheated on one of them.
That's awesome.
I cheated on two of them.
Okay. Hey, it's only day one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Caesar, I'm so impressed. All right.
Wes, what is 3 squared? 9. Kanaya, what is the square root of 121? 11. Emma, negative radical 36. Negative 6. Tatum, 20 squared. 400. Kale, 12 squared. 144. Okay, Lainey, square root of 289. 17. That's one of the harder ones to remember. If that was one that you had to look up, it's okay. It's only day one. Okay. That's a hard one to remember. Okay. So is 18 squared. Allie, what's 18 squared? 324. 18 squared, 17, 18, and 19, I think are 3 of them that are going to be the easiest to forget. Right, Kathy? Miss Huggins? Okay. Tony, square root of 4. 2. Awesome job. All right, Austin, 7 squared. 7 squared. 49. Sophie, 4 squared. 16. Sophia, negative square root of 81. And everybody loud and proud, square root of 100. That was loud-ish. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. Please erase those and put the materials back like you found them. So in a pile upside down. In a nice pile upside down. Okay. The more you can practice without using your chart, the better. Okay? Your homework is this right here. And I'm guessing that in the 5.5 minutes that we have left, you can do this homework. Just a thought.
Vision on 5.
It's literally written on the board for you, bud.
I said.
Okay.